wanted to make sure that I could see it in the preview window. And click and go live right now. And we're live, I think.
I think.
Hey, everyone.
What's up?
How's it going? Gary, I'll let you go.
You let me go? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. All right, cool. What's up, folks? It is time for the AFC webinar number 45. And y'all are in for a treat because since for the Accountability Success Circle back at the ranch, our focus this month is personal development. And when April and I were thinking about, this month, we were thinking about a webinar that we did a few years ago. And we thought, when we were looking through it, we're like, wow, this is still relevant for today. And so that is what you're going to get. But it's been revised and updated so that it is even more relevant than it was back then. Yeah, put on your seatbelts, get out your thinking hats. I know it's still going to be very conversational because you know how we do. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Look at this through the lens of, what area do I need to continue to work on? What we're going to do is, start to look at some of these myths that, yes, some people may get success for them, but it's not for the greater good. Matter of fact, I know most people who tried to get success from these myths will end up burning themselves out, frustrating themselves, and they will see like a backslide. And so we don't want that from you because in the AFC, we're all about, yes, getting stuff done, but it's on our terms and we need to be having fun as well. So I think we need to jump into it. What do you think, April?
I am down. Let's just do it.
Down like Donkey Kong. That doesn't even rhyme. Anyways, so all right.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Did I go too far?
No.
All
Before
right.
we go, I just want to say hi to Don and Terry who are in the live chat, and anybody else who will be coming on later. Just a reminder to you guys, if you are a member of the ASC, then hey, you get a free entry into our monthly challenge contest, which is super, super fun. If you are new here or you're stumbling upon the replay of this, watching this the first time, this is for you. And we are the Accountability Success Circle. Check us out and we'll talk about it maybe towards the end, but accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We are here to help you achieve all of your goals and dreams in the most fun way possible. So, okay, now we can go.
Game on. All right. Anywho. All right. So, I want you to just sort of think. Pie in the sky thinking. What would your look like if you can have consistent professional success without compromising any of your health or relationships? Because I feel like how it currently is. We talk about work life balance. That's not one of the myths, but I feel like that is a myth because I feel like when you double down on one area, you're taking your eyes off of another area, and it's like this sort of flip flop. However, what would it take? What would you need to do if you were, continuing working on yourself, but you're not compromising who you are, your integrity, your core self, to get there? Because, quick story, in a previous life, I, had the belief that, professional success was everything. And if it meant that I, sacrificed, relationships and stuff like that, that's what it's all about because, we'll eventually get to retire and everything's fine. Well, that's not the case. We all know, there's very few situations where, you have a job where you can stay that long and then retire and not think about it. But when a really close friend of mine passed away from cancer that he thought was in remission, was in remission for 10 years, and then it popped back up. It really shook me. Like, man, you could be gone in an instant. And yes, I feel like, we need to be thriving for something, but at what cost? And so that's what I want us to think about. We're setting that intention. So as we go through, the material that we're going to be covering, you can look at it through that lens. Anything else, April, before we talk about what we're going to do?
No, I think I'm good. I'll save
Cool.
more for later.
Let's do it. And thank you, Terry. I'm glad you can relate to my story. So, in our time together, we're going to do a few things. We're going to uncover these 5 myths around success. Again, yes, some people can get success in these areas, but it's not for everyone. And matter of fact, it's probably not for most people. And for each of those, we're going to talk about how you can create real success with a focus on balance, fun, and fulfillment. That's a big one, fulfillment. And then again, we're all about the action here. So how can you get those without feeling any guilt or shame? The last thing we want you to do is like feel like that you're not worthy. I talk about this in my book, of how most of the time we're living life through the lens of seeing the world as a proving ground, and we're trying to prove mostly to ourselves that we are worthy. And so I don't want us to see that through the world through that lens. I would rather us see the world through the lens of a playground, as in the people around us are our playmates, and the challenges and obstacles that we face are just stumbling blocks on our way to something bigger. And it should be fun and playful, because if it isn't, then why the hell are we doing it, right? So,
No.
all right. So that is our roadmap. That is our game plan. And at the end of the day, these are things that if we were like going back in time, this is the advice that we would give ourselves like a decade ago. Would you agree, April?
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes too, looking back at, some of this stuff, I think when was the last time we did this? It's like 5 years ago. Um,
Right.
the two of us have grown so much in the last 5 years, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is on our journey, right? And so for us to be able to reiterate how important these things are is super important. And I think also this is this stuff that we're going to share is stuff that we tout very, very heavily in the ASC. So if you are a member of the ASC, you're probably like, yes, yes, I've already heard this. But sometimes we need to be reminded. And so just know that these are some foundational things that we try to foster in our community because we want success for everyone. And so in order to do that, we need to kind of bust through these myths first. So
Yeah.
anyways, so before we go through,
We have
I wanted
questions.
to do a little fun game or a little trivia.
Yes.
And
Little trivia.
if you happen to be there 5 years ago, you might know the answer, but to this trivia question I'm about to ask. But I couldn't even remember when
Right.
when we
Neither did
did.
I.
So here's the quote and the question. The quote is, "Journey without it, and you will never prevail. But if you have too much of it, you will surely fail." That rhymes.
Right. All
What
good.
is it? What is this thing that if you journey without it, you will never prevail? But if you have too much of it, you'll surely fail. What is it? Well, we're not going to tell you now. You're going to have to wait till the end of this hour to find out. But just think about it as we go through. If you think you know and you're here live, feel free to type it in the chat. See what I won't tell you what the answer is either way, but we will see.
All right.
Okay.
Terry thinks it's confidence. Interesting. All right, cool. We'll see. We'll see if you're right at the end. All right, so moving along. Um, how many people can relate to this image, where you feel like every time you get through your to do list, it just multiplies like the little gremlins. You remember that movie from the 80s? The Gremlins. When you come back to work, you're like, man, I just got through it. And you feel like the only thing that's going to get you through the day is just straight up caffeine or sugar. Um, and if you can relate to that, just let us know in the chat. Also, how many of you feel like you're spending too much time at work, but for what? And again, we're not ones that are against hard work. Matter of fact, we're all for it. We think we should work hard, but again, um, we should do it with intention, and we should be very mindful of you know what is it costing us. And yes, there's going to be times when we have to pull that all nighter, but it shouldn't be the norm. So I know, like I said, And from time to time, like again, we're not perfect. We get sucked into this too, and we have to remind ourselves of this. So again, this is an ongoing practice. It's not like, oh, I mastered this, now I never have to do it. No, you're gonna be another sort of obstacle is going to come up and you have to redo it in another form of life. But again, back when I was in the corporate thing, I felt like I was on this treadmill and I was consistently going, and then you get in that rhythm and then something throws you off. And then you feel like you're spending all this time climbing back up. And, you know, that again is not a way to live. Again, Dee mentioned, that she can totally relate. April, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things that I had to learn very, very quickly, especially as somebody who is a parent, is that your to-do list is never going to end. You complete some things and then more just show up, because if you are not doing, then you're probably not alive. But letting that to-do list control you is not the way to live. So yeah. So, but at the same time, like, a lot of us live this way. There's so many people that I know, even in my social circles, where I can't even get them to lock down one day to hang out and be social, because there's just too much to do. Or there, I had a friend who was like, oh, my son, who's I think in 5th grade right now, is like, oh, he can hang out this summer, but he's only available on the first week of summer or the last week of summer. I'm like, oh. So there's always a lot, like, we live in this world of busy, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
So, anyways, uh, that is, you know, I feel like how it is, and there's going to be, seasons. So again, you're not alone. It's most of the people, are in this, and that's again one of the reasons why we want to talk about this, because this is a practice. We need to unlearn some things that have been sort of put forth in front of us from, like, the old way of doing work. And in my opinion, the old way of working is not working. So we need to shift that. So that's what we're going to jump into, the 5 myths of success.
Woo-hoo.
And how it's going to work is we're gonna throw up the myth, and then we're gonna quickly talk about it, and then we're gonna say what is the alternative, and how you can apply that. So we are on a road trip, so buckle your
Vroom, vroom.
seatbelts. Here we go. April, you're up first. Here's the first myth.
Okay. So myth number 1 is effort in equals effort out. Think about that for a second. It's kind of like when you think about you know, action equals result, right? If you want something to occur, then you need to put in a lot of effort. But does that necessarily show up the same way when it comes out the other end? Not. So, oh my God. Yeah. Just think about food. It's so yummy when it goes in, but then what happens when it comes out? Um, but from the standpoint that I want you to think about this whole effort, is that you almost feel like we've been living in this society where you feel like you need to hustle and grind and do a ton of work, because once you work super, super hard, and maybe this is part of the way generationally we had been raised, it's like you work really, really hard, it's going to pay off in the long run. But what's happened to us is that over the years, we've just been working more and more and more. And we start to forget about the fact that we are draining our batteries so much. And people tend to, almost use working and how much work they do, how many hours they're at the um, at the office, as a badge of honor. And do we really think that that is success? Oh yeah, I came home from work at 9 o'clock. When we really, really think about what we are doing in our lives, is I worked 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Is that something that you want to say on your deathbed. So just think about that from this perspective. And we'll go over to um, the truth in just a second. But what's happening is that, like, we are allowing ourselves to burn out. Um, and it's impacting us in different ways. It's not just the, oh, I worked this much, I made this much money, I accomplished this much, but what does it also say about our lives as a whole? So I want you to think about looking at, success in a different way, and this concept of putting effort in and effort out in an alternative, which we can switch to the next. So the truth is, your worth is not measured by your productivity. Okay, let me say that again. Your worth is not measured by your productivity. Your success, everything that you're working for, doesn't matter by how much you're doing. It's more, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Okay. Um, we don't, when you work yourselves out to burnout, you almost can't even appreciate what you've accomplished. I can tell you this from so many times in my life where I know that I'm kind of wired to always want to be taking action. That's just part of me. There's a lot of people in the ASC that also feel that way. But when we can't even appreciate, using the example of when I actually wrote my first book, I grinded on that, partially because I wanted to, but also because I was super excited. But I totally depleted my cup. But that by the time the book came out, I was in denial about it. I had to only admit it like 5 years later. But I was so burnt out. I almost couldn't appreciate all of the hard work that I put into making that book come out. And it was a book about work-life balance, which, when you think about it, I know Gary was saying a while ago that work-life balance is a myth, but it's because of the fact that you have to define what that balance feels like and looks like to you in order to do that. But it was just so funny that I wrote this book about how to be successful in being balanced. And I did so many things in the background that made me feel very unbalanced, that it almost took me the next 5 years to acknowledge and realize that. And so it's not about how much you're doing and using that as a badge of honor, but really thinking about, what is it that I'm putting my energy into? How do I focus on the right things, the things that I can look at and say, hey, I did this thing, and yeah, it was hard work, but like, look at what I have to show for, and I'm proud of it. And I can actually be present in the moment and enjoy the process. So I want you to think about the truth of the matter. Don't think about putting so much effort in to get some defined effort out. You actually can do less effort as long as you're working on the right things in order to create that effort out that you want to see. And what's really, really important here is making sure that you're creating positive boundaries, that you're focusing on the things that really light you up, that really give you that fulfillment. And it might seem more effortless. Is that more effortless? Is that, like, I was like, less effort, not less effortless. It will feel more effortless if you and then all of a sudden effort in doesn't equal effort out. Gary, do you have anything to add to that?
No, nailed it. Yeah, it's if we think about it like this, if the myth was true that the amount of time in, equated to your sort of worth, we would all be millionaires, but that's not the
Mm-hmm.
case. So, the people that are truly living life on their terms are, they have the boundaries in place. They realize that it's not about all the time that you need to put in. It's about creating that harmony between the various areas of your life, so that you can enjoy life while you're here.
Yes.
And D, yes, take a screenshot. Post that on your background of your phone so you remember that and whatnot. We got you.
Yeah.
Anywho, all right, cool. We don't want to be a downer. We want to keep on going. So, moving right along. Wow, first one was a big one. Just FYI, like just before we move on to the next one, imagine if you did nothing else but just shift that perspective. That it's all about setting boundaries and realizing that it's not about the time that you put in, how things will be different. I
Mhm.
think that is like a big game changer.
Yeah.
So the rest of this is like a victory lap. If you just focused on the first one, all these other ones are just icing on the cake, and they all support each other. Because again, if if you are focused on the first one, as far as effort in equals effort out, that means you are also going to have a challenge with this next one, which is the other myth of success is that you can only play once the work is finished, and it's very outdated. Um, and I know the sentiment is is nice of like, hey, look, we got to get our work done, and then we can have some fun. But that, in my opinion, that belief is insisting that we if we play, then we're wasting time. It's implying that we don't know how to control ourselves. In my opinion, it stems from the Protestant work ethic, which is, the whole thing that you have to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, because if you had any leisure time, you would do devilish things. And we know that's not the case. We know that so many people are burning themselves out, and the World Health Organization is classifying burnout as a serious health issue, and and the reality is that play is just as important as breathing. We are wired for play, um, and when done in the right light, it can actually be rejuvenating. Um, so again, I can talk about this for hours, but we all know that we don't need to wait till work is finished before we can play, because guess what? The work is never going to be finished. If you were waiting for the work to be finished, you would always put play um, off to the side, and then we treat play like it's some reward that we don't deserve. And then again, if you think that your time is tied, the time that you spent is tied to your worth, then guess what? Oh my God, that is not a good recipe for success at all. That is a
Mm-mm.
recipe for depression and very expensive therapy bills, if I'm just being honest. So if the myth is I can only play when the work is finished, the reality is we need to be intentional. As I mentioned, we are wired for play. Play, when done right, can boost our energy, which will help us be more productive. Think about your given day on a day to day basis. Um, are you taking breaks? And if you are taking breaks, how are you spending that time? I'm curious. Feel free to put it in the chat, if you're watching live, or if the replay, put it in the comments. And again, no shame here. Just be honest. Oftentimes, um, you know, people report, oh, I'm busy, so I eat my lunch at my desk. Or yeah, if I do take a break, I'm scrolling on social media, I'm checking email or something like that. That is not conducive to rejuvenation. So if you subscribe to what we talk about, that play is something that can sort of boost you up, um, then you need to be intentional. Put it in your calendar. You need to schedule these things. After long stretches of time. In the ASC, we do the Pomodoro method. Where we work for a stretch of time and then we take a break, and then when we're co-working together, we use those breaks as ways to catch up in community, which is again very rejuvenating. We might play a game or something like that. But what happens is when you are taking your brain off of the work that you're doing, your brain is still working in the background on these complex problems. You're just rejuvenating your energy so that you can boom jump back in and be even more focused. And so that's the whole point about scheduling these things. And it may seem counterintuitive of like, why am I scheduling these things? Again, excuse me, it's all about creating an environment where we can thrive. And if your environment is you chained to your desk and you're essentially getting food through an IV and you have a catheter and you're just, you know, work, how how fulfilled are you going to be with that? Even if you were to do everything, that doesn't seem like fun. What do you think, April?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's so funny because every time I see this quote and we talk about this, I'm always like, oh my God, this is what I say to my kids all the time. Like, okay, do your work first and then you can play. But, for reasons being that, I know that once they start playing, it's very hard to reel them in after as oh, my dog is going crazy. He's very angry at this tip. Um, it's very, very difficult, especially like when maybe you have ADHD, to kind of like reel it in afterwards. And so the way that I kind of counteract this is making sure that there is ample time for play. So as an example, my kids, I, I'm sorry, my dog is going crazy. It is, can you hear that, Gary?
A little bit. It's not distracting.
Okay. Everybody, my dog is barking. Sorry about that. I think there's, making sure that there is structure. Like for one of the things that I do for them on every Friday is like, okay, get all of your homework done on Friday so that you have free play on Saturday and Sunday. And they will stay focused, and sometimes they're working till 8 9 on a Friday unless we have something else that we're doing, but they try to get it all done so that they have even more time to play because of that transition time. So even if you choose to work for a little bit and take a break, or making sure that you schedule breaks in, longer periods of breaks throughout your week, then that is also effective. Just making sure that even if it's a short 5-minute break to just go and grab a glass of water or something like that. Just make sure that you're not sitting there um constantly doing anything. And for me, I start my day every morning, part of my morning routine, playing a game. And it kind of helps me get excited about the day and helps me wake up. So I start playing first and then I work. So
Yeah.
yay.
So one thing with that too is looking at these things as replenishing dopamine. And I was talking to a psychiatrist about this, especially folks that might be neurodivergent, where the way that we operate isn't like the norm, where people that have a surplus of dopamine can like jump into a task and get going and everything's great. Um, People that are neurodivergent often, like they say, oh, don't eat your dessert first. You need to like eat the main food. Um, if you time box it correctly, that little play break in the beginning can get you that dopamine so that you can jump in and focus. And that's something I'm still unlearning, and like it feels wrong, but like yeah, in talking to the doctor, they were saying that especially people that are have a deficiency of dopamine, so if you have ADHD and things like that, um, and you're trying to do work later in the day, you need that play break as a jump starter. And so, yes, people with ADHD, have challenges with transitions and can hyper focus on things. So you have to be very diligent to say, all right, I'm going to, and this is something that I do, especially when I do workshops in the morning. I have to come home and actually do other sort of work, especially work that's very taxing. So I will come home and, similar to how April starts her day with some video games, I will say, all right, cool. I need to get the dopamine so that I can focus on these like sort of mundane tasks. And so I will say, all right. So it's almost equivalent of like, how we come home from school and then we have to do homework. So I was like, all right, cool. I got 25 minutes. Um, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna right now. I like this game. It's called Wingspan. It's about birds and stuff like that. It's kind of silly, but
Mhm.
it's fun. I'll play that for 25 minutes. I'll set a timer. And the goal is not necessarily to finish the game. The goal for me, I know that it is giving me the dopamine so that after the timer's off, I am ready to jump right into the task. So I have the task ready, and then once the timer's off, boom, I jump right into the task, and then I have a timer set for like, all right, cool, I'm going to work for, about 45 minutes on that, and then I'm going to take a break. So again, the whole point here is that when you have these play breaks throughout the day and you're intentional about them, you actually can probably work more and work longer because you're replenishing your supply. Because as humans, we're very bad at knowing when we've expired, and uh, there's research that shows that when we are doing work, when we are tired, we're more prone to mistakes, which means that we're going to have to work even more on it. So, anyways, I don't want to belabor this because we still have three more. So, but these two are big ones, and again, focusing on these can definitely make some major shifts in your day to day. So, the next one is really important as well, and this is number three. And this again is a success myth: is that, oh, once I'm successful, I will be happy. That is a big. um, I can attest from this from personal experience. Again, there's research that shows that people that have gotten raises over a certain amount, it did not make them even more happier. And people that have like yeah, success. Like, what does that even mean? Like, oh, we bought ourselves this. Now, I'm not saying go buy yourself things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying those things, especially if they are materialistic or extrinsic things, um, it's not necessarily going to make you happy like you think it is. There will be a short term boost in happiness, and then it starts to wane. So again, it's not going to be the big payoff that you think, and then matter of fact, it can backfire because then you get resentful. You're like, I worked all of this for this, and then you want to get that high again, and so what do? You set another thing, and that's how they get you in that
Mhm.
trap. So again, the problem is that we are setting our happiness on outcomes instead of being happy in the moment. April?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that there is I'm trying to think of what I there's so many things that are coming up when I think about this myth because um especially I don't know what it is, but I've been talking about this. Gary, I don't know if I had this conversation with you. I've had conversations with some of my clients and some of my peers who have really done some amazing things. Going back to even, the myth number one, where they put a lot of effort in, and they got a lot of effort out, which is great. But then you almost get to this point where, like Gary was saying, you accomplish something and then you're like, well, now what? I don't feel any different. So now how am I going to one up myself so that I can get that? And the happiness that comes from the accomplishment is usually short lived because then you just go and accomplish the next thing. And so, really thinking about how do you flip this myth the other way around? I don't know if we should go over to talk about the
Yeah,
truth.
let's do it. The truth. Let's jump into it.
I I think what we need to do is really think about how can we be happy with where we are at in our lives right now. Um, I know that you're always going to want to grow and do more because, we're ambitious, driven people and we care about doing things, making impact. All of that is valid. But I think using that um, as the indicator on whether or not you will be happy, whether it's, I need to make this much money and then I will be happy. I need to just work so that I can then retire. And when I retire, I will be happy. What about the, 50 whatever years leading up to it? Why can't you just start being happy now? And how can you be successful now? How can you embrace that? And that might come in the form of, sitting and celebrating. Maybe everybody here, like that's watching live right now, let's just think about like something that we're proud of that we have accomplished in the moment now. Gary, um, what makes you happy, and what
Yeah.
makes you,
Yeah.
what success do you have?
For me, the things that I've been focusing on is in the health realm. So, been um, really leveling up on my Peloton bike, and that, yeah, that makes me happy. Just my ability to keep riding and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of fun. What
Right.
about you, April?
Yeah. And I mean, and for me, right now, like the thing that I'm most proud of is just the fact that my kids are just doing so well in school. They're starting to become their own little independent selves. And I'm starting to see these glimpses of like, they don't, they may not need me anymore, but I get some of my life back after how many, years. I have a 14-year-old now who's going into high school, like all of these things and all the work that I've put into it. But just seeing what they are, how they are becoming, and just being able to enjoy, and the fact that they're not like, Mom, I hate you, leave me alone. Like as teenagers, like I'm expecting that to happen, but they're still hugging me and all that. And that makes me super happy. And so, if you're here live, if you want to share in the chat, like what makes you happy, like now, not thinking about like happy later, let's be happy now. What is that thing? And we want to really encourage you to celebrate what you've accomplished. We do this in the ASC every Friday. So it's really, and it doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be like, oh my God, I published a book. Oh my God, I landed a deal. Oh my God. It's just like, I am just happy to be alive. It could be as simple as that. And you just have to remember that happiness is a choice, right?
Yes.
You don't have, you don't have to do things to be happy. You can choose to be happy. Any outcome or anything that's happening to you, you can decide to look at it from a negative light or from a positive light. So if you can choose happiness over the negativity, over the anger, over the fear, um, you will automatically also feel successful as you're going through, because the stress, the fear, all of that stuff is kind of meant to slow you down, right? If we go back to the productivity conversation, yeah, your worth isn't based on your productivity, but productivity is still important. And we want to make sure that we set ourselves up for the best type of productivity. And happiness can be that factor that is, it's not something that is, like you have to do something. You just have to, it's more about who you're being. So, yeah, Gary, do you have anything to add more
Yeah.
there?
The main thing to add is how can you, yeah, focus on the now, focus on the gratitude, and it's all a mindset shift. So to prove that, um, quick activity. So look around your space and find a color that is the most dominant in that space. So for me, I see a lot of blue. It's going to be different for everyone. I can't see your space, but find out whatever color is the most dominant and start to memorize everything in that space that is that color. So, like for me, there's like my drapes, and I have these blue polka dots, and there's blue on this image. So you just do that for yourself, just real quick. Just memorize everything. Um, and then, since we're all intelligent beings, I know you're going to pass this quiz, but just after you memorized it, close your eyes and then to yourself start retelling, all those things, as quickly as you can. Um, Keep your eyes closed. Um, just say them out loud, say them out loud. And with your eyes still closed, since you looked around the space, you've seen everything. I'd like to invite you, without cheating, and you have to be 100% accurate, start naming off things that are red, if that's not your dominant color. Name off things that are green, that's if that's not your dominant color. Like other colors, like blue or yellow. Go ahead and do that with your eyes still closed. Again, you have to be 100% accurate, no cheating. And what you will find, if you're honestly doing this correctly, you will find that is nearly like it's impossible to find those other things of those other colors, even though you scan the room. And it's because the things that we focus on, um, our brain, sees more of them. Our brain's job is to keep us alive. Our brain can only process so much information, at a time, which means that it's doing shortcuts. It's like, so, all right, cool. You said this is important, so all right, cool. I'm going to focus on that. These things aren't important, so I'm just going to sort of maybe put that in there. And what happens is, by us like not focusing on the things that are making us happy right now and the things that that we can control and all this other stuff, then we see more of the negative, and then it becomes a spiral. So by focusing on the things that are good, focusing on the happiness, you will start to see more of that happy things. And again, it's all about an energy. It's all about managing your energy. So when you're focusing on the happiness and all the positive stuff, you're going to get more dopamine, you're going to get more serotonin, you're going to get more endorphins, all of those chemicals that are going to help you be more productive, be more creative, feel like you belong. And it's going to be no wonder why it's going to be this cyclical cycle. So again, we're just not telling you, oh, go, be a Pollyanna. No, like they have long lasting benefits. And yes, there will still be struggles that happen. However, there's research that shows that people that tend to think more on the positive side, that can find these positive things, are more resilient, which means that they can overcome them faster. So I'm going to get off the horse.
Amazing.
And yes, and now I'm going to turn it back over to April
Yeah.
for thing number 4.
Thing number 4. Myth number 4.
Myth number 4.
I love this one. Maybe because it's like the biggest lesson that I've had to learn in my life. But the myth is I need to diligently plan every outcome in order to be successful. Now, everyone who has attended one of our the ASC's annual planning retreats knows what the truth is on this. And when I talk about, hey, we've got an annual planning retreat, we have a weekend, and that we cannot plan every detail of a whole year in a weekend, right? Sometimes we don't even know what we're doing tomorrow or after this call. So the reason why I think people want to diligently plan is because you want to be able to look out for all the possible roadblocks and anticipate. Because if you can get past the anticipation of, what might go wrong, you can, think of and brainstorm ways to overcome that so that you don't have to experience the roadblock, which is great. But at the same time, when you plan your life too full, like, oh my gosh, this morning I'm waking up and then I've got a meeting and then I got to go to an appointment and then I got to come back and I got to drop off my kids at this place. But then I've got to, pick them up. But in between, I got to go get the groceries and then I got to do this. If there was anything in that day that you planned to the brim that fell apart, right? Because there's so much that you cannot control. You are in control of you, but you can't control anybody else that's interacting with you. When something either blows up silently on the side, like your son then texts you and be like, I forgot my science project again. And then you had everything filled to the brim. You will feel this wrath and stress, feeling like, man, I anticipated everything and now you're doing this. And it just creates this anger. That's exactly like what I'm saying, but I'm screaming it louder, right? And so when you diligently plan every outcome, you are making yourself prone to even more stress because you are trying to control so much. But also B, you're missing out on opportunities where you may be offered something that didn't require any, action on your part. Like there's these beautiful things that can happen in the open spaces. So the truth for this myth is to drum roll. Be flexible. Okay. There's nothing wrong with planning so much detail, but also understanding that things may change. When we think back about COVID, I didn't want to bring that up, but like, how flexible did we need to be to take our lives completely to the online space? No more interacting person to person. No more touching people, no more parties, no more anything. We had to create all these brand new things. When we made this in 2018, the pandemic hadn't even happened yet. So like we were still already talking about it at that point. Be flexible. You know, there's sometimes, I know, especially if you are somebody who likes to be busy and do a lot of things, have your hands in a lot of different pots. It's fun to have all that, but then and maybe even when you have too much time on your hands, it's a little bit uncomfortable. That's how I feel. But I can't tell you how many times I almost, like, I've been over the last 5 years trying to do less and less. And I encourage people, even at our retreat, like, don't make too many crazy plans.
Exactly.
Like we put all of our plans and our visions on post-it notes during the retreat. And I'm like, your goal is not to have like so many post-it notes. Your goal is to make sure that you have the right post-it notes that you want to make sure that you focus on and prioritize. Right. And so this is melding in with all of the other myths, right? If you want to be able to have time to, if somebody ends up calling you out of the blue or is like, hey, I'm coming into town and I'm going to be here on Thursday. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm booked out 4 months from now and I can see you in August. Can you reschedule your flight? You won't make time for some of those things and some of those connections, some of those experiences that you can't curate, you'll be missing out on. You also need the space to have time for creativity, and it's a huge stress management thing, right? You don't want to be packing your schedule to the brim. And so you want to plan for like the gifts that you aren't expecting. You want to also plan for the negative things that could be unexpected, right? Like I just lost a friend a few weeks ago to a motorcycle accident, and having to having the space to set aside to be like, okay, I want to be there for his wife and be supportive of that and honor him, that type of stuff. If I was like, nope, I'm sorry, I have to work too much, or it's not great to feel like you have too much going on. And I don't think you want that, right? We don't want to feel like we are have too many things going on in our lives. So be flexible, be open to what changes. And sometimes we have the full intention to do something and then it doesn't pan out. And we want to be able to pivot when those things happen. So giving yourself like a compass and a direction on where to go, but giving yourself the flexibility to see how the how of what you're doing plays out is what we want you to focus on. And then you can you can really take time to focus on what's important and make magic happen. And if you feel like you need a break, then you need a break. So awesome. Gary, you have anything to add to this one?
Nope, you crushed it. Thank you, April. So yeah, so this one is a big one for me. This next one. So drum roll, please. Our
Love this one.
fifth
This one's super important.
and
Oh god.
final myth is that in order to be successful, if you ask for help, it is a sign of weakness. This is something that I've struggled with, and from time to time it still pops up. And we don't have enough time to unpack all the reasons why. We just know that, hey, look, it is something that is out there. And if you also struggle for asking for help, let us know in the comments. You're not alone. And for me, like, it's been such a thing that it's so ingrained to like not ask for help for various reasons. I'm the oldest. I'm the only boy. All these other things. But someone will say, "Hey, Gary, do you need help?" And an unconscious response. I'm even conscious of what's going on, I've already said, "Nope, I'm good." And then I think back, I'm like, "Wow, I do need help," but I already said no. So now it's gonna sound weird. So, anywho, um, and it for me, like the old school thing is, if you ask for help, it's a sign that you don't know what you're doing. That is not the truth.
Mm-mm.
Um, and it's or you don't want to burden people by asking for help. What's your excuse? Let us know in the comments. What's your excuse for not asking for help? I know for me it was like, oh, yeah, I know everyone's going through some stuff, and if I ask for help, it's is going to put a burden on people, or it's probably just faster if I do it myself. Like, all of these are lies, and all of these things will keep us stuck because um, I forgot the African proverb, but it's basically, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a community. And so the truth is, it's all about looking for support, because it's not possible for us to do everything. Not possible for us to do everything in a given day. It's not possible for us to do all the amazing things that we want in life without other people to support you. Um, and I want you to think about a time when you did ask for help. Did someone come and say, "No, stupid, you do it yourself"? Maybe that's what you were thinking they were going to say, but it's not the case. What did they say? They probably were like, "Hey, I got your back. Is all good." Matter of fact, people want to help, and by denying them the opportunity to help, it's denying someone a chance to be of support, of service for you, and it's like almost like saying, "Hey, yeah, you're not good enough for me." Um, so again, I know a lot of times, we think people are mind readers and they can read our mind, and like, and know we really need help, and then say, "You know what, Gary? All right, cool. You need help." They're not. We need to ask for what we need for, and by doing so, a few things happen. One, we grow our confidence. Two, we grow our network. We let people, um, do, and be their, their own strengths, and whatnot. So, I want you to, think about right now, what are the things that you could be asking for help for? Maybe they're, someone to support you. Maybe it's something that you can delegate. I learned this from a gentleman. His name is Chris Ducker, and he talks about, getting that sort of freedom of being an entrepreneur, and it's the three lists to freedom. And in that three lists, the first thing is things that you should not be doing. And what I mean by not doing, it's not worth your time to do. Because you can delegate that to an assistant or have your kids do it or whatever. So put all those things on the list, and things that you are not capable of doing. You think that you're saving time and money by doing it yourself, but you have to do all this research and stuff like that. What are the things that you need to do that you're not capable of doing? Boom, put it in there. And then what are the things that you should be doing to grow yourself, grow your business? Put it in there. And what happens is, it's not like you can immediately delegate everything today, but it's something you can work towards. you know, Go reach out to one person and ask for help. So that's my challenge if you're up to it right now, to do that. And if you're watching this live, you're most likely in the community. Guess what? We want to help you too. So April, myself, and all the other people in the AFC, we got your back. But yeah, real success, and people that are ultimately successful, they have a support team. They have people that have their back that are going to help them achieve the things that they want to do, because it's all about having a team. April, any last thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to speak to this because I think I also obviously struggle asking for help, and a lot of times I feel like I just don't know what help I need.
Good point.
And so when you approach somebody, or if you are somebody who is like, I know I would love help, but I just don't know where, this is a perfect opportunity for you to just ask somebody for time to just kind of like brain dump. Like, and what you want to ask the person, and so this is you kind of asking for help, but you want to kind of ask the person to just like listen to where like the stressors are in like in that brain dump. It's like, well, what do you have on your plate, right? Because when we want to ask for help, it's usually where we think we need help but we don't know what we want to give. There's usually because there's too much to sift through, right? And when your brain is like super clogged and you're like, oh my god, it would be awesome if somebody could like, or if I could clone myself and like do all these things, but really trying to ask the person who, you're just kind of having a discussion with, to just kind of notice and pull some of the things that appear to be the big stressors, and then having them help you brainstorm how to make that stressor just a little bit less stressful, if that makes sense. Because sometimes it could even just be like, let's just talk this out. And you could be spinning in your head, and that could be a reason why you don't know how to ask for help, because your thoughts are all jumbled. And so having somebody kind of just mirror back to what they're hearing you say, or just being a support system. And again, this is stuff that we do in the ASC all the time. It's like sometimes we feel so overwhelmed and we don't know what to do. But if we have a place to kind of, a support system to kind of let that out, it um sometimes it resolves on its own. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was like in a funk. I just like, I wanted to like stop working. I was so frustrated. And then now I'm like preparing for an interview for a contract job. So it's so funny because I'm like, I need to do something, but I don't know what to do. And just kind of processing through that, and kind of wading through all of that, but having somebody who's there to kind of just listen to you, and just either help you brainstorm. Like sometimes that could be the easiest thing. Just be like, can you spend some time with me? And it's connecting with people, which is awesome. Right. So, you can always ask for help, but you always want to pay attention to those things that are like, kind of getting on your nerves. Is it something that you can delegate? Is it something that you need to like schedule some dedicated time to like really figure it out? Or, what else is there? So just don't feel afraid to ask for help, even if it's a small thing. I ask my kids to do chores for me every day, and it's great. It
No, I
makes
agree.
me happy.
And
So
I'm getting to the point where Garrett can do stuff like that, and it's just amazing.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yes.
So ask for help, ask for help, ask for help. It is a you are cool if you were asking for help. But yeah.
Yeah.
So those are our 5 myths. Which one of them resonated or spoke to you the most as you were watching? Think about all of these things. And, these are all things that we definitely talk about and try to make sure are nurtured in the ASC. But yeah, what's next? Where do we go from here, Gary?
Yeah, where do we go from here? The main thing is, as you mentioned, April, it's all about, we can listen to this, we can nod our heads, be like, yeah, this works for me. But if we don't take action on them, then it's all for naught. So, as you mentioned, April, everyone needs to think about like, all right, what is one thing that I can do right now as a way to lock this in? And Terry mentioned number 4, which I love it. Number 4 is, about being flexible. And then D mentioned asking for help. Yeah, hey, you know what? You're not alone. We all struggle with it. And, just know that we got your back. And so celebrate that. Whatever you do, celebrate it. But yes, we can't plan for everything. So that is pretty much, well, no, that is not it. We have a few things. One, we talked about the takeaway. So what's your big takeaway? Let us know in the chat. Schedule that. But the other thing is our trivia question. And the interesting thing is, no doubt, we have some of the most talented intellectual people in the AFC. And I'm not surprised that 2 of you got it right. And the answer is confidence. So to review, journey without it and you will never prevail. But if you have too much of it, you will surely fail. And it's all about confidence. Yes. So hopefully we're helping you get more confident. And just remember, we're here to help you. And April, do you want to close it out so we can say goodbye?
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who are, a member of the ASC, we absolutely appreciate you for showing up and spending an hour with us. We hope this was super valuable. A lot of our webinars are very like conversational and whatnot, but we just felt like this was so good and so meaty, and we just wanted to do it again and revisit it. And so we hope this was really great for you. If you are watching this and you are like, what is the ASC, Accountability Success Circle? What? I just saw success and I was intrigued. Go check us out at www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We are an online community that is focused on helping people create intentional goals and execute on those plans related to those goals in order to have a higher quality lifestyle, happier lifestyle, all of those things. So come check us out. Join us if you are intrigued by it. We've got free trials going on all the time for different lengths, depending on when you join. And we would just love to support you and help you change up these myths that our society is living by and living in a different and better way. So thank you guys, Terry and Dee, and I'm trying to remember who Dawn and everyone who's here live, because you know there's a couple other people that are not saying anything, but it's okay. We appreciate you for being here. And then we'll see you next month with another webinar, but we'll keep the conversation going in the community. So see you later, alligators.
Bye.
Bye.